So welcome everyone. We're so excited to be delivering this funding masterclass using grant financing to meet your grant cash requirements. Super excited to be hosting the team at OKR Financial, having Sarah join me here today to talk to you all about grant financing. What is it? How can you utilize it? How can OKR help you get the money that you need so that you can access that grant funding that Pocketed is connecting you with? So before we get started, as I said, I want to go through a couple housekeeping rules. The first one being that you please remain muted for the duration of this session. So if you have a question, please feel free to post it in the chat. We do have some folks from the OKR team as well as the Pocketed team here today who can help address those as we go through the session. We also have about 20 to 25 minutes of dedicated Q&A time at the tail end of this. So during that time, if there are questions that we have not addressed, we will be able to go through those at that point in time. Now, I want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded, and that recording will be sent to attendees and registrants after we wrap up today, along with any important links to resources and documents that we discuss throughout the session as well. And so on that note, please do keep your camera off if you do not wish to be included in the recording. Sometimes some faces pop up here and there in the recording. So if you don't want to pop up in the recording, please do keep your camera off. Now, the final note, I'm pleased to share that this session today is offered in closed captions for those who would like to have those on. Just at the bottom of your screen there, you'll see a little CC closed caption button. So if you would like to turn on live transcripts, then you can do that there, and I've just enabled that feature. So if you'd like to read along as we're going through the session today, you can definitely turn that on. Now, with those housekeeping rules out of the way, I am very excited to get started with our funding masterclass, and we are going to start off with going through sharing a little bit more about Pocketed, who we are and what we do. And so here at Pocketed, we want to help you connect with the funding that you need for your business. And when it comes to non-dilutive government funding, there are a couple of key challenges that we really uncovered in our early days of accessing non-dilutive funding for our own business. Now, the first one is that locating grants is extremely challenging. There are a lot of programs out there. We'll talk about how much funding is available here in Canada very soon, but there are a lot of programs out there, a lot of grant administrators, and it can become quite overwhelming and challenging to figure out, hey, what's out there and what works for me, especially as a busy business founder, right? We don't have a lot of time. We have a lot of things that we have to do as we're running and executing and growing our business. And, dedicating that time to finding these grants is not always realistic for us as a business owner. Now, the second challenge that we uncovered was that requirements are unclear, right? We spend all this upfront time, this time investment to find a program that might be right for us. And when we finally come across it, we're not quite sure exactly what are the requirements to apply to this program, right? What are the eligibility requirements? What do I have to have in my business to take advantage of these funds? What kind of projects am I able to fund through this grant program? So that's another challenge, right? If we're not sure that it's the right fit for us, how are we supposed to move forward and actually secure this funding? Now, the third common struggle that we found, throughout our conversations with hundreds of entrepreneurs across Canada, as well as in our own internal team, is that support is difficult to access, right? Well, we may be able to go out and spend a little bit of time looking for grants. We may be able to figure out, hey, this is a good opportunity for me. What are the next steps? If I'm brand new to grant funding, how am I actually going to be successful in applying to these funds and securing these funds? And where can I look for that support? Where can I access grant writers? Where can I access grant financing like OKR and Sarah is going to be talking about today? There's no centralized resource necessarily that I can go to and find this for my business. So how can I address this? And these three challenges, right? Requirements are unclear, programs are difficult to find, and support is difficult to access, led us to launching Pocketed. Now, building a business is hard. We understand that. And one of the biggest barriers is money. And we definitely understand that. Now, our founding team lived this pain, and we tried to finding this money was difficult for us. And so that's why we launched Pocketed. Pocketed is a way to simplify access to government funding for businesses like yours, connecting you with the eligible funds that you need to scale and the support that you need to secure these funds. And we'll talk about that a little bit later today. But what I want you to know is that over 7,000 businesses across North America trust Pocketed for their government funding needs, and we are excited to help you too. Now, for today's session, we're going to cover a few things. So I'm going to talk through some Canadian grant basics. Then we're going to talk about Pocketed, how you can use it as a tool to find the funding that works for you. Then we're going to talk about some common grant misconceptions. And then I'm going to hand it over to Sarah and the team at OKR, who are going to talk all about grant financing, what you all came here to learn about today. Now, I want to get started with a question. Who here has used a grant? Let me know in the chat. Have you used a grant, yes or no, in your business in the past? Very simple, in the chat box, yes or no. Amazing. Okay, so we have a lot of folks who are brand new to grant funding, which is really, really exciting. We have some folks who have secured grants for their business in the past, which is great to see. I always love to hear when we have some seasoned grant professionals who are coming out and looking for a little bit more funding for their business and to learn a little bit more to get that extra edge, in their company. But it does look like we have quite a few folks who are brand new to grants. And so this first section that we're going to be talking about today is going to be very relevant and very helpful for you as you're just getting started with that process, right? Just seeking out grants for the very first time. And so without further ado, we're going to hop into the Canadian grants landscape, an overview of the programs and funding that is available to you. So the first thing I want to address is, what are grants? So simply put, grants are a form of non-dilutive capital that helps you grow your business. Now, what does the term non-dilutive capital mean? So non-dilutive capital is any form of non-equity, non-debt capital that you can get from an outside funding source for your business. So this means that you are not giving up ownership in your business, and you are also not taking on debt that you have to pay back at a later point in time. So a really, really great way for early stage founders, growing small businesses, scaling medium-sized businesses, to bring on that outside capital and not have too many strings attached to outside third-party, resources that you'll have to end up paying back to, or you're on the hook for with that equity requirement. So simply put, grants are a form of non-dilutive capital to help you grow your early stage business. Now, how does grant funding work? So there's kind of a common process that you'll go through when you're looking for grants for the very first time. So we see a few things on the screen here, right? Projects, cash up front, and reimbursements. So the first thing you're going to do when you are securing or looking for a grant fund is to identify a project that you are running in your business or executing your business that you need that outside capital for, right? So that could be a hiring project, it could be a research and development project, something in your business that you need that capital in order to proceed with next steps. Now, what's the next step? You're going to go and find a program that works for you, right? There are many grant funding opportunities here in Canada. You are going to find the one that works for the project that you are executing at your business. And of course, find one that works for the business that you have built. Now, you're going to submit an application and you're going to get either approval or a decline on that application. Now, if you are approved, then you're good to go. That cash is secured for you and you can begin to execute on your project. Now, the important thing to note, and why we're having this session here today with OKR Financial, is that with most programs in Canada, you are going to need to have some cash on hand today, so some cash flows in your business in order to pay for that project, and then you will be reimbursed at a later date. So you're going to begin to execute the project. You'll pay, for any of those project-related expenses, and then you'll begin to submit some documentation on the expenses that you're incurring. And that's when the reimbursement will begin, right? So depending on the grant program that you're working with, depending on the project timeline, this can vary, of course. You can begin to submit documentation sometimes halfway through the project or all at the end of the project, right? But what's really, really important to know is that you do need that capital. You need that cash today to begin to utilize these grants, to begin to execute on these projects that you're funding with the grants. And that is, of course, why we have great partners like OKR Financial who can help you with that. So identify a project, apply for the grant, get that cash on hand today, execute documentation and reimbursement. That is the structure of grant funding. Now, what projects can I fund, right? I spoke about, okay, first you need to identify a project. And this is a really good tip that I always give for those folks who are just getting started. And I know we have a lot of folks who are just getting started with grant funding. And so think about the projects that maybe you could use some additional funding for, you need that funding for to get started with. So there are 4 core categories of grants, and we can see them here on the slide. We've got research and development, we've got hiring, we've got training, and we've got market expansion. These are the 4 core categories, and these do not change. And I always say, if you're just getting started, if you're not sure, what you can take advantage of or what grants you should start to look at, first take a look at the projects in your business and fit them into one of these categories, right? So are you looking to bring on an intern for the summer? Then you're going to look at hiring funding, right? Are you looking to expand to a new international market? Of course, in that case, you're going to want to look at market expansion funding. And within the Pocketed platform, you can filter by this, and it will greatly reduce the grants that you see, the matches that you have, and save you a ton of time as you're going through that process. And there's a special fifth category, COVID-19 recovery funds. We've seen a lot of these over the past 12, 14 months, actually more than that now. It's been about 2 years, but a lot of these programs are closing up. The 4 core categories will remain in place. Those will stay the same, so keep those in mind. Now, how much funding is available, right? What is out there? What is available to you? Well, you may be surprised to know that there's actually $5.9 billion available annually in non-dilutive government funding here in Canada. So this consists of grants, tax credits, business competitions, money that is available to you. Now, obviously, no, you are not going to be able to take advantage of all $5.9 billion for your own personal business. But we have had many, many companies very successful on Pocketed, securing $100,000, over $1 million in funding. Here at Pocketed, we've actually used for $750,000, $750,000 alone in the last 12 months to grow and scale our business, which is very impactful, right? Those are real funds that we're able to utilize and use to execute the projects that we need to run to scale, right? So $5.9 billion, that is the total amount of funding that's available to you. And you can definitely take advantage of a hefty chunk of that for your own business. Now, I want to take a couple quick minutes to take a look at Pocketed, right? I promised, in advance that we would take a look at a tool today that can help you navigate the space of non-dilutive funding. And so we're going to take a quick peek because Pocketed is the tool that can help you. And while I'm switching over, onto the session here, I'm going to ask that my team does share a link in the chat that you can use to sign up directly. And we have a special code for today's session. And when you use that code, you're going to get some special perks. And I'll talk about that in a second. So I'm just going to throw this on the screen here. This is the Pocketed platform. So the way Pocketed works is you as a business owner will come to Pocketed, you will create a free account, fill in a bunch of details about your business, and then you'll be matched with eligible funding opportunities for you specifically. So we have over 1,000 opportunities in our database. These are federal, provincial, municipal, private level funding opportunities for you. You don't have to see all of them. You only get to see, and you only need to see those that you are eligible for as your own individual business owner. So on my account here that I've created, I have 150 matches. So that's fantastic. That is still a lot of opportunity for me. I'm excited about that, but I know this is a reduced list that is eligible to my business and eligible to the projects I'm looking to execute on, right? So I can come into this list, I can click on any single one of these and learn a little bit more about it, right? So I can see how much funding is it, what's the deadline, about the program, all those things that I need to feel confident to say, hey, this is actually something that I want to apply to today. I'm gonna make that time investment and go out and apply to it. Now, how do you reduce this list down even further? We talked about projects, right? Think about the projects that you're executing on. So in this All Filters tab, if we open that up, we're gonna see the grant types, exactly what we spoke about today, right? So we've got hiring, research development, market expansion, training. If we click on any one of these, we are going to see that our list of matches reduces a lot, right? So I went from 150 to 51 programs. Now I know this is specific to my business and specific to the projects I'm looking to run. So a really fantastic way to save yourself a ton of time and find programs that are right for you today. Now, the last couple of things I want to point out here in the Pocketed platform is we've got 3 key buttons. We've got the apply button, which will allow you to go and apply to that program on your own. We've got the hire a grant writer button, which will allow you to connect with a grant writer to support you through that application process. And finally, and most relevant to our session today, we've got the finance this grant button. So when you do not have those capital cash requirements on hand today to actually utilize these programs, all you have to do is click on that Finance This Grant button, and we will connect you to the lovely folks at OKR Financial for some support on that. So I'm going to hop back over to our slide deck, and we're going to quickly run through some common grant myths. And then we're going to hop right over to OKR Financial for what you are all waiting for. So the first grant myth that we hear a lot here at Pocketed is that there are too many strings attached. I've got to be pulled in this direction, that direction. I don't want to deal with grant funding, too many strings attached. Yes, it is true. The grants have certain requirements like reporting, and you have to stay within the project guidelines, but you set this all up in upfront, right? unlike other sources of financing for your business, where you are, tied into a third party who's expecting a return on their capital, you have flexibility with grants, right? You get to choose the projects you're working on. You get to do the reporting, and you're not held accountable by an investing third party who is, guiding you or directing you and say, you can't do this in your business. You can't do this. You retain that ownership, and you don't have debt when you do bring on these grants. Now, the second myth that we hear a lot is that if I'm not in tech, there are no grants for me. Now, this is completely false in two ways. One, there are a lot of funding opportunities outside of the tech space, whether it be for agriculture, for the arts. There are grant opportunities, industry specific, for many companies outside of tech. Now, the other really cool thing is that a lot of programs that look like they are tech funding at surface level can actually be utilized by non-tech companies. So a really great story that we have about a taco food truck, very traditional small business, was able to leverage some technical funding because they were hiring for a technical role. So, right, we think about the project, we think about the role, these types of things. These can be technical in a non-technical company. Maybe you're building a website, maybe you're revamping your website, maybe you're doing some digital marketing, some development of an app, even if you're not a tech company. You can utilize that tech funding at surface level that may not look like it's eligible to you, even if you're not a tech business. So we've got to break this myth. If you're not in tech, there's definitely funding for you, and you may even be able to utilize some tech funding in your non-tech business. Now, the final myth that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm actually going to touch just very, very briefly on it. If I don't have cash on hand, I can't use grants. Sarah, is this true?
No.
This is not true. And I'm going to let Sarah take it over. This is the perfect transition point for OKR to step in, because if you don't have cash on hand today, you can still utilize grants. And Sarah is going to tell you exactly how you can do that. So Sarah, without further ado, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. So I'm Sarah. I'm with OKR Financial. We're a company that's headquartered out of Calgary, Alberta. We've been around since 2015. So we're a 7-year young company. And then we really operate right across Canada, a little bit in the US, and then also in the UK. So super excited to be here today. Looking forward to kind of sharing how we can help companies finance their grants. So awesome. So really where we come in is a startup is kind of maturing from the R&D, and they're about to launch their product. They're in the next stage of the development. And where do they get cash? Like, where do you get cash? You've got that cash burn really that's starting to accelerate. And then there's just a more kind of need for that capital inflow. So typically you really start with your friends and family. That's your first area to go. From there, you can go to angel investors, to pre-seed stage VCs. Traditional banks are really not the best option because they're typically looking to lend against hard assets. So that's where government funding comes in, and that's where we love working with Hello Pocketed. So it's definitely a resource that I'm using on a day-to-day basis, sharing with entrepreneurs and encouraging entrepreneurs to explore what government program financing is out there, because there's so much out there. And it's just a really great way for you to maintain full ownership of your company early on and access that non-dilutive financing. So did you know, just like Ben was saying, that 90% of the programs in Canada require a dollar-to-dollar match? So really what that means is, let's just say there's a program out there that requires $100,000 to release $100,000. So you have to show that you have that $100,000 to access that grant. And that's also where we can come in. I'll kind of go into that a little bit further. Also, it takes anywhere from 3 to 16 weeks from approval to receiving the funds from the government as well. It's a lengthy process, especially coming out of the pandemic. We're hearing, it's taking 3 to 4 months for some companies to actually receive the funds. So what do you do in that intermediate period? And then funding is really provided in monthly or quarterly tranches as well. So government funding is by far the cheapest source of funding, without question. Here in Canada, it's a super aggressive country. It's a great country to be starting a company right now because of all the government programs that are out there. And it brings me so much joy in my role to kind of be in touch with all these amazing companies that are emerging out of Canada and our ecosystem. It is really slow in terms of submission, approval, and receipt of the funds. So that's the caveat. And that's why we help you leverage your tax credits and grants with short-term loans. So really what we do is we take your government program or your grant and we leverage that within your company as an asset. And then we secure funding against that. And then that really prepares you for when equity and venture rounds make sense for your business. So it's all about getting you to that position that when you are in that huge growth stage that you need that equity injection, at least you still maintain full ownership of the company and you're able to get the most bang for your buck. So at OKR Financial, we're right in the middle. We're a really different kind of financier. We're not a startup. We're not a traditional lender. We're right in the middle. So what we do is we operate 8 different funds. We're a nice family-sized office. So we can be really creative in the way that we kind of structure loans and create loans for companies. And then we really assist companies with 3 areas of financing. So obviously the one most relevant for today is government program financing. We do a lot with SHRED, SDTC, IRAP, MyTax, but we can really finance any government program that's out there. I'm from Nova Scotia, and in Nova Scotia, there's a program on a provincial level that's called the Wild Blueberry Efficiency Program, which we're able to leverage for funding. So no government program is too small or too out that we can't lend against it. So we can really lend against any government program. And we also do asset secure loans as well. So the way that we kind of do that is a company comes to us and they've got a big purchase order, they've got a big contract that needs financing. During the pandemic, we had companies that were coming to us that were awarded contracts for PPE. They needed to source that inventory. So they just needed that cash flow for that short period to buy that inventory to fulfill that purchase order. So that's also what we do. And then lastly, we also do equity financing as well. So we really like to kind of engage with the company, have a call, see where the company's at, and then either, finance your grant or do the equity as well. So it's all about growing with the company as well. So what needs are we really meeting? So really what happens is small and medium-sized businesses need that growth capital. You're in that stage where you're either investing in marketing, new hires, whatever it might be, materials, manufacturing. You need that growth capital right now to get you into that high-speed growth. And you don't want to give up equity. There's so many companies in Canada right now that are giving away huge chunks of equity for small 100,000s amounts. So that's really where we come in and we kind of help with that non-dilutive financing. So when to really use debt? So really it's pre-revenue. Sometimes the only option beyond friends and family are grants, and you have to take on a little bit of debt. We also do balance sheet assets. So your assets that can be securitized are like traditional, like land and equipment, SHRED as mentioned. And we also do MRR, so monthly reoccurring revenue. The speed to capital, so you need the funds quickly, under a month, and cannot wait for the equity diligence and documents. So really what happens is, you wanted to close your equity round in September, you're 2 weeks away and it's not looking like it's going to close on time. So that's also where we can assist. It's just getting you to that next stage. And then material valuation inflection. So you believe that within the next 12 to 24 months, a major valuation change is going to take place. So either you're going to kind of secure that big purchase order, that big contract, whatever it might be, but you're really close to having something big and you just want to maintain still the company until you're at that stage where you're going to get a better bang for your buck on your equity raise. And then when to use equity. So that's when gasoline on fire capital, really. So it's down to a CAC, so your customer acquisition and lifetime value ratio. You typically want to have a 3-to-1 there. And that's when you can take on that equity. And then again, so there's not enough assets on the balance sheet. So assets are already pledged or securitized or don't exist. So you don't have anything that you can kind of leverage. Strategic partner. So you have an opportunity to bring in upstream, downstream, or a strategic partner into the company, someone that's going to have those relationships that's going to help your company get to that next stage. It's always a good option. And then the long development cycle. So your product may take years to generate revenue and you have a need or patient capital right now. So why do we care? Why are we doing this? really we're a group of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial spirit. Our managing partner is two-time Angel of the Year. He's really passionate about what he does. And so is everyone on our team. Again, we're a nice, small little office, and we really do have that entrepreneurial spirit. And really our fund was built out of necessity when founders couldn't find shred financing through traditional financiers or banks. So they really felt that there was such a need in the ecosystem just to help companies bridge finance a lot of programs or opportunities. So with the government program financing for tax credits and grants, I've already mentioned some of these, but the top programs that we really lend against are SHRED. Everyone should be looking into SHRED no matter what you're doing. It's the best program federally in Canada for anyone in the R&D space. It stands for Scientific Research Experimental Development. It's a great program and you can claim it back up to 18 months. Your big eligible expenditures there are really going to be your salary, contracted work, and kind of materials and overhead. So it's a great program. Everyone should be kind of having that on your radar. We love to be interacting and engaged with entrepreneurs that know about government programs and that are accessing it. It just helps you kind of your credentials in growing your business that you're taking advantage of these programs in Canada. We also work a lot with IRAP, the Innovation Superclusters, the Digital Media Tax Credits, SDTC, and the Canadian Media Fund. But again, we can really work with any government program, and that's why we love working with Hello Pocketed, because there's such a synergy in what we're doing. So they're able to kind of expose you to these programs. You don't have to do a ton of research. It's all accessible on that beautiful platform. And then in a click on a button, we can be connected and have a call as well where we can help you. Then we also do the asset-based financing. So again, as mentioned, it's your purchase orders, contracts, accounts receivable, inventory, capital expenditure, and your monthly recurring revenues. And then for equity financing, we do venture capital and turnaround assistance as well. And then down here, we have kind of the outline of what we need to get you that dollar-to-dollar match. So I think Ben is going to bring us to the My Tax page, but really what we need is just our application filled out, and then we can insist on that dollar-to-dollar match lending as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And I'm just going to hop back over actually to the Pocket platform so we can take a look at My Tax together. So what Sarah's talking about, dollar-to-dollar matching for grant programs, there are a number of programs that are out there that will require you to, match a certain level of investment in the project that you're working on with cash out of pocket. And My Tax is a good example of that. Sometimes asking for between 25 to 50% matching, depending on the time of year. I know at the end of last year, at the end of 2021, they had a special deal going on where they had 75% coverage, but most of the time it's going to be a 50-50 matching setup here. So I'll just quickly hop over. Now, what's really great about My Tax is that they have a number of different programs you can actually take advantage of depending on what you're working on in your business. So I've just pulled up a few here in the Pocketed platform. So we've got the My Tax Business Strategy Internship and the My Tax Entrepreneur International. My Tax typically is going to be working with your business in partnership with an academic institution. So some kind of a post-secondary pre-approved post-secondary institution here in Canada. So you are building that kind of relationship and partnership and typically working with their talents. So whether it's current undergraduate students, postdoctorates, there are a number of ways that you can fund projects as well as internships like this one here, the My Tax Business Strategy Internship directly, using that My Tax funding. Now, with this program, and this is very similar to a lot of the other hiring programs that you may work with, you will have to meet requirements on both the business side as well as the position side. So that individual who you're hiring is going to have to meet a certain set of criteria, including things like being registered in an accredited, post-secondary institution, or, a recent graduate. So, within the last 2 years, be a, Canadian citizen, permanent resident, refugee status. So these are some of the common things that you're going to have to, think about and consider when you are approaching programs like My Tax and other hiring programs. But a really good example, of a program that does require you to, match some funds, and you're not just getting, 100% coverage or anything like that. You do have to put some input and some investment from your own business in order to take advantage of it. One last note on MyTax, since we're here talking about it, Pocketed does have a direct relationship with the teams at MyTax. So if you ever want an introduction to their team directly to chat a little bit more, they have a lot of different programs. So if you need some clarity around that, we're happy to do that. But Sarah, that's all I wanted to cover today on the MyTax side. So I'll hand things back over to you. I'll just switch back to our slide deck.
Yeah, I think it's really important to just kind of give that context on those government programs and then how we can assist with that financing. So thanks, Ben. And then the real common areas of focus for government programs really are in R&D. There's a lot in HR and training, a lot in commercialization, a lot in green initiatives, and then a lot in capital expenditures. You know, super similar to what Ben was saying earlier on the size of government programs out there. So just SHRED alone in Canada is a $4 billion program. Last year, they helped 30,000 companies in Canada access that tax credit. And then when we talk about the market size of the top programs that we listed on the previous size, that's just right there, a $10 billion industry. So how do you work with us and how do you get your financing from us? So it's super simple. Usually it starts with an intro call. So I'm going to have my email at the end of this presentation. Please feel free to reach out if there's kind of an opportunity for us to connect and kind of discuss your business and how we can help with your financing. So we do an intro call. It can be anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes, just better understand your company and where you're at and kind of the next 6 months for the company and see if we're going to be a good fit. And if we think we are going to be a good fit, we have you fill out an application. Super simple, kind of have some supporting documents, kind of your necessary due diligence. From there, we offer a term sheet. So our corporate finance team reviews the application and then they issue terms. If you accept those terms, the loan documents are created, and then from there, the cash is dispersed. So it's a really quick and easy process. And, you know, from intro call to application, it can be 10 to 14 business days for the funding. So the interest rates. So we charge monthly interest rates. We charge anywhere from 1.4 to 2.4% monthly. It all depends kind of how long the company's been around, the age of the company, what's on the books. That's why there's such a big range. It's simple interest if paid monthly, and the interest compounds if paid upon maturity. The term, so we typically create loans with a lifespan of 6 months. Our typical length is actually 3 months because, you know, you're waiting on your SHRED and then it comes in about 3 months. But again, we can be pretty flexible in the way that we're creating our loans. So if there's a necessity for it to be a year-long loan, we can also look at that as well. And then security. So the only security that we really take is the tax credit or the government grant. You don't have to put up your house or any personal guarantees. It's just the government program or the asset contract or purchase order. So here are some testimonials. We've got some on our website as well and kind of some case studies, which I think are really interesting to look at. It's just so empowering to see how quickly these companies can grow with a cash infusion. So I'm just going to read 2 of them. So we have varying financial needs and often access options for financial support. The fact that the control and ownership of funds remained with Transpond, as well as the flexibility we had in repaying the loan, made OKR the most favorable choice amongst others. And the process was extremely fast and efficient. OKR understands the needs of startups and how freeing up cash tied in these assets allowed them to extend the runway. And then kind of like, again, just recapping us and why we're someone you should be engaged with. So speed, so we can really turn around that financing really quickly. Hybrid approach, we'll also look at doing both government financing and asset financing at the same time. If you're looking for that larger kind of pool of non-dilutive financing. We have really a proven leadership team as well. So as mentioned, our managing partner is 2-time Angel of the Year. He's had several successful exits across many companies as well. And then connections. So we have access to, 30 plus angel groups as well. So we're quite well connected within the ecosystem, and something that we pride ourselves on is helping entrepreneurs grow in Canada. This is the life cycle of financing and really kind of when to be engaged with us. So we're anywhere from that pre-seed raise to your Series A right in between. And valuation and timing. So really it's about the market need and concept fit. So that's when your kind of initial valuation is under $1 million. Then you get to that proof of concept. So you've done your R&D and now your company's worth 2.5 million. And then product launch or early revenue, that's when your valuation is $5 million. So it's super important when you think it doesn't make sense to really take on equity at stage 1 or 2. You really want to hold out for stage 3 when you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And then here we just do a really simple breakdown of why debt is better than equity. So let's just say you're looking for $300,000 to realistically get that in Canada right now. You're going to be looking at 30 to 40% of your company for $300,000. When you look at debt, you would pay $18,000 in interest. Then your annual revenue is 200,000, your annual profits are 100,000, your profits to your investors would then be 30,000 on the equity side. And then if you look down at the cost of capital, it really is less expensive to take on debt versus equity. These are some of our partners that we're proud to be working with across Canada. Hello Pocketed is there. It's definitely an asset that I'm encouraging all entrepreneurs to be actively engaged with. There's new government programs popping up every day, and they're super great at, providing those updates via email. So it's something definitely good to have on your radar. And that's it for me, Ben. There's my email, but I'm happy to do some Q&A now. And I hope you guys found this valuable.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. That was, fantastic, really great to get that insight and clarity around grant financing, because I know we get a ton of questions about it, here at Pocketed. Folks, maybe they'll get a grant with us and they're like, wait a second, I don't have that cash requirement. Okay, you know what? It's okay. We can help you. OKR is here. And we'll get you that cash that you need today in order to take advantage of it. So thank you for all of that great information. Now, I just want to note, I know we did have some folks drop at the hour, which totally makes sense. People have other meetings before we launch into the Q&A period. And so we're going to have some time here until we hit the half hour to go through anything, Pocketed related, platform related, grant financing related. Any questions for myself or Sarah, we're happy to answer, but I just want to throw this on the screen really quickly here. That's my email. We'll be sending a follow-up email as well. I want to drop the link in the chat for anybody who wants to sign up for Pocketed. That's going to be the best way to get in touch with us, as well as to get in touch with the OKR team. For those who sign up to Pocketed, if you need that grant financing, we're able to make that direct intro. So you don't have to worry about it, a million and one different things. So we will drop the link in the chat here. Yeah, Mary, thank you so much, has just dropped it there. So totally free to create your account. And as I mentioned, we do have that special promo today. So with that link that we put in for you, the Funding Masterclass code is going to get you over 25% off upgrades to Pocketed Plus, which is fantastic. So if you want that, upgraded version of the platform, and if there's any questions about that, we'll be happy to address those. But yeah, if you do use that link and the code today, you will get that discount, which is fantastic. So make sure you do sign up. And then of course you can reach out to our team directly through the platform to ask some more questions or connect with OKR. So let's hop into some Q&A. I know we've had questions coming through in the chat, and thank you so much to Mary, who's actually sitting right here next to me, for addressing those questions kind of as they've come in. But if there's anything that you felt hasn't quite been addressed, anything that you asked that you'd like to kind of build a little further on, please either raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can unmute, or you can drop it in the chat again, and then Sarah and I can address it directly. So I will open that up to the group. We have 15 minutes. Mary, were there any questions that we saw in the chat that we haven't addressed quite yet? We've got some hands raised, so maybe as you're looking through that, we'll start to go through the list here. So Anya Serginko, please go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like. You can also type it in the chat if you're not comfortable unmuting.
Yeah, hi there. I had asked a question, just wondering if OKR Financial consults or handles shred claims, or do you just lend against it?
We just lend against it, but we do have connections if you were looking for consultants as well.
Okay, that was just my question.
Perfect. Thanks for the question.
Great. So Kenneth Gunn, if you want to go ahead and unmute, then that's fantastic, or you can type it in the chat.
Sure, no problem. Here in New Brunswick, our funding is mainly through like a COA and other organizations for the government, and it mainly focuses on tourism. Heaven forbid they focus on something that's actually going to keep people here in New Brunswick. So my question is, I run a virtual academic support company, which is eventually going to be all across Canada. There's very little funding for companies such as myself. Now, this could be for Sarah or for you, Ben. I've gone through Pocket. Actually, I've used the filter and everything, and it's pretty cool. I like it. But again, like this is why Sarah's here. I don't have the funds to put against those 50-50. That's why I've been talking to my techs. I've gone through Ben Innovation. I've gone through 3+ Corp. I've gone through Boost 2.0, Digital Boost 2.0, DNI. So I've done a lot of grants and a lot of small projects and everything. But in order to continue to grow and move towards my 5-year digital strategy, I need extra funding, which revenue is not there. So how do I overcome that gap and as Sarah mentioned, I don't have that initial funding, and I'm hearing about all these great things like Shred I've never known about. So, I guess maybe a consult with somebody would be a good start.
Yeah. So Kenneth, like obviously a lot to unpack there. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, it sounds like you're doing some really fantastic work at your organization, and I hear you, right? This is a very common struggle for a lot of early and scaling stage entrepreneurs, where they're facing that, they're running into that barrier basically of access to capital in order to get to that next step. Now, there are a lot of resources out there. There are a lot of funding resources out there, and we know that. And so obviously Pocket can help you navigate that space. We do offer some paid consultations with the team, or you're able to also take advantage of some consultations when you upgrade to Pocket Plus if you do want a little bit of one-on-one touch point support. We also, and this is good information for everybody here on the call today, we have daily office hours that you can attend. And so if you do have some specific platform questions, you're not sure, then you can attend those and ask. But we have a ton of partners in the space. Obviously, OKR is a great a great lending partner. We also have some other partners like accelerators, incubators, chambers of commerce. If you are interested in having conversations with more of those types of folks and getting more of that support, then we're always happy to facilitate introductions. But Kenneth, I would say yes, let's definitely try to connect. Outside of this call, we'll talk a little bit more about your specific business needs, and see if we can find some recommendations for you to get you to that next step.
Propel ICT and Ben Innovation, both. I've done them both. They're both really great. So
awesome.
I appreciate it. I am going to have to drop off. So I really appreciate it. Great information, Ben. Thanks for arranging it. And I will definitely reach out because I'm already signed up on the platform. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Kenneth. Have a great day. Thanks for coming by. Great. Okay, Kaylee, you're up next.
Hey, thanks for your time today. Just actually 2 questions. What kind of work history or recent work history do you kind of look at or is required? And the second one is, how difficult is it to get startup like grant funding capital for a new restaurant startup?
Okay, yeah. So just to clarify on the work history piece, and maybe I'll answer this in the way that I perceive it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So some funding opportunities, some grant funds will have a requirement on how long your business, has been in operations for before you can access those funds. So maybe they'll have a 1-year incorporation requirement, or maybe a couple more years incorporation requirement. Same thing goes for programs like Shred. You'll need to have at least 1 year of expenses in order to submit those claims. But yes, there are definitely programs that do have that. Now, not all programs. Some programs like Digital Skills for Youth, DS4Y, does not have any requirements around how long your business has been in place, how many years of operation do you have. And so as a very early stage founder, you can potentially take advantage of something like that. Now, as for the restaurant industry piece, again, this really comes down to the projects that you're executing on, right? I spoke about how grant funding is not only for those in the tech business, and it can become, somewhat more complicated depending on the, the industry and the space that you're operating in. But if you were working on like a technical project, for example, building a website, or launching maybe like a food delivery app, in collaboration with your restaurant operations, then maybe yes, you could take advantage of some kind of digital hiring funding or something like that. So I would encourage you to, create a pocketed account and see if, what matches you have there. There will be some matches for you. You can navigate through those. And of course, if you need that additional support, you can always reach out to us. But I would say yes, there would be potentially some opportunities for you in that space. And so I encourage you to explore that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And when it comes to actual, if you haven't had a business for the last year, it's pre-startup kind of stages, looking for location. Do they look at an actual work history, like what you've been doing the last couple of years, or does that even matter?
No, so like your own personal like resume would not matter in a case like this. The grants are going to be more looking at the company itself, and then project specific stuff. So like, when we were looking at the My Tax program, I was like, okay, this needs to be Canadian students, Canadian citizen, permanent residents. Like that's going to matter, but that is for the individual you're hiring for, that project with that grant. You as the founder, you as the business owner, that's not going to matter as much, when you're, depending on the program you're looking at.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Great. Oh, I see we have somebody there. Amazing. So some fantastic questions coming in here. I don't think I see anything in the chat right now. Oh, we've got another question here. Justin, please go ahead and unmute yourself if you're comfortable, or you can drop your question in the chat as well.
Hi, thanks very much. I represent a corporation that's owned by a younger woman. She's under 40. The business took a major hit at the beginning of the COVID lockdowns because some business came from China. So before it even hit Canada, revenue dropped by like 80%.
Right.
So crippled the business. And then we went into research, R&D, but it was basically content development, strategy, and looking to develop an online platform and publish a book that's related to our industry. So are there any, I heard you say media and digital media, something like that funding. Is there anything that could help the business there? And the revenues drop down to a trickle, so we don't have cash flow. So
yeah, no, thank you so much for the question, Justin. And I do encourage business specific questions come in. On this note, I would also say I would encourage you to kind of sign up and reach out to our team offline as well, so that we can have a more concrete conversation about your business. But more kind of broadly, generally, yes, there are funds available. One for those folks who are working in media, developing content like that. There's a few programs open right now from Shaw Media. There's like the Shaw Rocket Fund, which is open, and that helps if you're curating content for like youth in Canada, things like that. Of course, there's the Canadian Arts Council as well, which offers a variety of funding programs that you may be able to utilize. So I would say take a look at those two. So the Shaw Rocket funds, as well as the Canadian Council for Arts and funds that they have, those will be listed and pocketed if you create an account. Outside of that, for businesses that have taken a hit, there have been obviously a number of COVID-19 recovery programs that have been open over the past 2 years that you've been able to claim some cash back. If you've had a significant decrease in revenue. Some of those programs are closing up, but there still are a couple opportunities to take advantage of. So again, sign up to Pocketed, those will be in there, and you can reach out to our team if you have specific questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Justin. Okay, Sarah, looks like we have a question in the chat for you from Ahmed. So Sarah, the interest rate you mentioned, as is monthly, annual, so just I think a little bit more clarification on that.
Yeah, so it's monthly, and it is expensive cash that we provide, but we're typically kind of like a last resort for companies. So you're not quite able to get that banking loans. So that's where we come in. And then again, where you're only using us for 3 to 6 months, that's why the rate is a little bit higher.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. I know that that's definitely a question that we get a lot at Pocket. Like, oh, what's the rate? Like, what are we actually looking at here? So thank you for clarifying that. And Ahmed, thank you for the question. Now I see Adele, you said that the code Funding Masterclass is invalid. I know our team is looking into that. For anybody who is having any issues with that, just shoot us a note after if you are having problems. But that code will get you access to that 25% discount on Pocketed Plus upgrades. So I've got another question in the chat here from Lawrence, who direct messaged me here and asked, what is your rate for pocketed funding? So Lawrence, to build on this a little bit, Pocketed is actually not offering the grants directly from us. So we're not a grant administrator. Instead, we're a connector. So we're helping you connect with those programs that you were eligible for. These are already existing in the market. So if you go and apply to a grant program on your own that you find through Pocket, like MyText, like Digital Skills for Youth, like Can't Export, we do not take any portion of that grant. So if you're signing up for the free account and you're applying on your own, then you don't pay Pocketed any portion of that grant. Now, if you are looking at getting some support on the grant writing side of things, so if you'd like somebody to write that grant for you instead, then you're looking at a couple of common fee structures, hourly rates, flat rate fees, or conditional success-based fees. The hourly and flat rate are very dependent on the grant writer and the program. The conditional success-based fee is actually really great for any founder or any business owner. There's no charge upfront to work with the grant writer on that program. They only will charge you if they are successful in securing you those funds. And then in that case, you'll pay a portion or a percentage of the grant that you secured. So it's really great. Obviously, it's very low risk. You don't have to pay anything up front, and you're only paying if you do secure those funds. So that is a little bit more information on the rate, for pocket funding. It's only if you get that grant writing support. If you're applying on your own, we don't take any portion of that.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. What would the conditional percentage be then? What would the rate be?
Yeah, so the typical average rate here in Canada is going to be 20% of the grant amount. Now, obviously, if you are looking at some larger programs like 1 million plus programs, then it would be a variable method where it's basically 20% up to a certain dollar value, and then a lower rate after that. But that is industry average, and so a lot of our grant writers in our network do work on that 20% of the grant amount. Perfect. Okay. Oh, great. We got an update from Mary here. The Funding Masterclass is good to go. So for any of you who are having any issues with using that code before this, you are all set. So you can go and create your Pocket account there with that code, and then you can access that discount, and we will be able to make any intros to OKR if you do need that intro. So we have no more questions in the chat. We have no more hands raised. So this is fantastic. We're wrapping up pretty much just on time. We timed it perfectly. So thanks everyone for asking the perfect amount of questions. So thank you once again. I just want to thank Sarah and the team at OKR for taking the time, out of your day to come here and, chat with, our community about grant financing and how they can access that upfront cash that they need to access the grants that we have on Pocketed. So, love our partnership. Thank you for taking the time of your day to come and chat with us. And
hi, Ben. I did have a question that was in the chat.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So we have one last question, and it's okay because we have a little bit of extra time. Okay. I don't see the question right now, Peter. Peter, if you want to just stay on for 1 sec, we can hop off. We can stay on the call and I'll address your question in a second. Anybody who wants to see it can stay on, but I just want to thank everybody for joining today. As I said, the session is recorded and we will be sending that out for those who would like to watch it back, review some of that information again. Keep your eye out for future sessions from Pocketed and future sessions from Pocketed and OKR together. I'm sure we will be doing more in the future. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to welcoming you to Pocketed very soon.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks, Sarah. Great. So, Peter, we'll stay on the call here. Just trying to find your question here. Was it in the chat? Oh, there we go. Yes. Are there grants for those starting a business with a disability? So Peter, this is a really great question. And I actually have a close contact and a user of Pocketed from here in BC, Kelowna, great user of ours, and a good friend too, who does have a disability himself and is typically looking for funds for that. Now, right now, there are not a lot of open programs for founders who have disabilities, although there are a few. So I know like Work BC offers some like assistive technology funding for those who obviously are operating in British Columbia. I would say each province likely and typically does have their own kind of, Work Ontario, Work BC, they would offer some kind of assistive technology funding that can then help you at least get some of that equipment or things that you may need to help. So it does depend. There is some funding out there for it. And so I would say, if you do need some help kind of navigating that space, especially on Pocketed, we'd be happy to do that for you.
Yeah, I have 2 physical disabilities, so that's why I was
yeah.
inquiring.
Yeah, great. So yeah, Peter, I would say, yeah, please, I encourage you to, create your Pocket account, put that in there. And then the platform will match you with any eligible and available funds that do support with that.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Great. I know we still have a couple last folks here lingering around. If you do have any questions, I will remain on the call just until 12:35 West Coast, 2:35 East Coast. I know sometimes people just walk away from their computers and leave the session on. So yeah, I'll be around here if there's anything else.
Ben, I have a question about Indigenous funding. Is there, I understand if I went through the site, I would get some more information, but can you talk a little bit about that, especially with regards to training and startup?
Yeah, so Lawrence, that's a great question. What I'll have to take a look for you after the session day for if I can find any specific programs, because I can't think of any just off the top of my head right now. But on the note of training, of course, like what I would say is that you could definitely get a training grant maybe outside of the Indigenous funding category that you could utilize for your business. So again, depends on the training project that you're executing on. But yes, there are some specific funds that are targeted and specified for Indigenous businesses. So what I can do is I can take a look for you after our call today and send you a follow-up email. But I would say, one, yeah, sign up for Pocketed, and two, maybe look at some training funds outside of like just specifically Indigenous, businesses, because you may be able to utilize those as well.
Okay, and one last question, sorry, different. What about for cancer treating hemp, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Hemp, yes.
Yeah, so if that's a separate business that you have,
yes,
for sure, there would be funds available to you. Again, depends on the projects that you're executing on. There are some great, some fantastic research and development grants here in Canada. There are, you can definitely utilize those for like, I don't know if you're doing any like clinical trials or things like that. There are some from like CH or the CIHR, these types of organizations. So I would say yes. The answer is yes, there would be funds available to them. Again, somewhat dependent on the projects you're executing.
Yeah, it's more specific right now. It's for land or construction, even before the actual clinic opens.
Okay, so I know there are a number of programs that you can use for like equipment financing or equipment grants, and so we have some other partners, actually Northbridge Consultants, who specialize in equipment grants, and I know OKR and the team, Sarah and OKR, also have some specialty in financing those types of things. But if you're interested in equipment grants, I could also reach out to our partners at Northbridge, and we could look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Hi,
I know we have some.
can I answer a question quickly? Sorry, Ben.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
I let everyone else go. Okay, just very quickly. Thank you for the presentation again. In regards to online business, if you're busy and you don't have a storefront, what is the possibility of getting a grant? I don't know if there's any restrictions around that.
No, not at all. Like you do not need to have a storefront. If you're an online business, that's fantastic. If you have an e-commerce site, those types of things,
yes,
you can definitely get funding for that. You do not having a storefront business is not a requirement. Actually, it's funny because a lot of storefront businesses actually maybe think they can't get grants. So it's kind of the vice versa, right? Online businesses, oh, I can't get grants. Storefront businesses, I can't get grants. But no, both. If you have a storefront, great. If you don't, that's also fantastic.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking I was going to hear the opposite of what you just said.
Right. Yeah. No, Teresa. Yeah. Happy to clarify that for you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Have a good
You're welcome. You're welcome.